Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tejano Traveler. I'm your host Wally, and today we are on the Texas Independence Trail in Houston, Texas, to take a look at the Buffalo Soldiers National Museum. Now, this museum is housed, I think it's a former high school because that's what it looks like. But it's in Houston, it's close to the museum district, and it's a pretty cool building. It's got some statues and installations around the campus, and then once you're inside, you get to learn all about the Buffalo Soldiers. The Buffalo Soldiers were the African American regiments of the military forces here in Texas, and you get to learn all about their history. They mostly served during the Indian Wars, and you can sort of see how it's all connected to that if you come to this museum. They played a large role in establishing and protecting a lot of these forts that were on the frontier, and one of their main enemies were the Native Americans, especially the Comanches. And that's how they ended up getting their name, Buffalo Soldiers, because of different reasons. People say it was because they wore big old buffalo coats during the winter. Others said because they fought like wild buffaloes, and others say that their hair reminded the Native Americans of the hair of the bison. So there's different reasons for it, but if you come here, you get to see a lot of artifacts that are connected to the history of the Buffalo Soldiers. They were formed right after the Civil War, like 1866, I think. And if you come to this museum, you get to see what their uniforms looked like. I've always liked their uniforms, they're very dashing. Um, I like seeing all the different mannequins, and I like this one, but then it's got some wonky legs. But there were excellent horse riders and trackers and frontiersmen, and I like seeing this ad calling for men of color, and they're looking for service, and they valor and heroism. Not just because they were no longer out in the frontier, they still continued to serve. So if you come here to the museum, you get to learn a lot of that history. This is my favorite uniform out of all of them. It looks cool. But you also get to learn about all the other um, commitments they made to the military forces. And you get to try on hats, which I kind of like, but my head is too big for some of these hats. But they weren't just Buffalo Soldiers, they also had service in the Army and the Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, National Forces. Uh, it's cool coming to a museum and just seeing different things. This one's his exhibit was on rations, and I definitely believe there should be a whole museum just dedicated to these rations because they look awesome. But you also get to learn a lot of the history, and there's a lot of things to read. You get to find out how they served and some of the wars they were in, and how they mostly fought the Native Americans for a while because the United States and Texas were expanding, and they needed to have forts to protect all these expansionist policies. And there's pictures of some of the Buffalo Soldiers during one of their more controversial events. But this museum in Houston does a pretty good job at including a lot of different aspects of the whole serving your country. And there's Mae Jemison, which we always stand Mae Jemison in my life. But it's a pretty cool museum. You should definitely go check it out. Get to find out more about the Buffalo Soldiers and their contributions to our great country, and get to learn a bit about the past and hopefully the future. And I'm glad that museums like this exist because they tell an important part of history that is often overlooked. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye bye.